The Order of the Celestial Spire abided by three inviolable tenets. First, romantic entanglements between mentors and apprentices were forbidden. Second, upon taking an apprentice, a mentor had to adopt a magical glamour of old age to prevent such entanglements. Third, an apprentice could never use a term more intimate than master, for the same reason. This was why, among outsiders, they were known as the Order of the Aged. For 132 years, Kalen had enjoyed the privileges of his ageless, handsome form. That era ended the year he took an apprentice. The boy's name was Jude. He came from nothing, a life of hardship etched into his lean frame, but his innate power was staggering. Kalen had fought 3 duels with his peers just to claim him. Inside the Great Hall, Jude surveyed the assembly of stooped, white-haired figures. There was a gaudy master whose robes were threaded with shimmering gold, and another with crimson hair and heavy kohl around his eyes who had a serpent coiled on his arm. Jude's expression soured as he posed a soul-wearying question about why they were all so ancient. The only one who wasn't was Leo, Kalen's junior. Jude pointed a defiant finger at him, asking if that man couldn't be his master instead. It was no surprise he'd chosen Leo. When Leo, a nature spirit, had first taken human form, he'd surreptitiously modeled it on Kalen's own appearance, though a lack of finesse meant the resemblance was faint. Still, among the sea of wrinkled faces, he was a vision of youthful beauty. Leo feigned a flattered surprise. His own ineptitude had prevented him from ever securing an apprentice, leaving him stuck in his younger form. He cast a pleading look at Kalen, silently begging for the chance. Kalen knew how badly he wanted an apprentice, but a dark possessiveness stirred within him. He sent a low, threatening thought to his junior, asking him if he was certain his meager skills could protect them both during the final trial, hinting darkly at a shared, grim fate. The vivid imagery must have startled Leo, who stumbled back a few steps and stammered that Kalen was clearly the better choice for a mentor. Jude's opinion of Kalen soured further, but Kalen was the most conventional-looking of the lot. Resigned, Jude knelt stiffly, his face a mask of reluctance. His declaration that he was ready to begin his tutelage under his maestro echoed with shocking impropriety through the hall. Every elder in the room tensed. Kalen quickly corrected him, insisting on the title of master. Jude was confused, arguing that the other title sounded more respectful. Kalen explained that master was a title of guidance and responsibility, asking if he was not fit to be a guiding figure in the boy's life. Jude's eyes roamed over Kalen's aged glamour, and he remarked dryly that Kalen looked old enough to be his grandfather. Kalen's pride smarted. At 132, he was in his prime. The first day, and already a migraine was blooming behind his eyes. He gave a cold laugh, remarking that age had its benefits, like wisdom and authority. Kalen was a renowned bladesinger in the order. Before taking an apprentice, they called him the Sword Saint. Now he was just that old swordsman who's surprisingly quick. Noticing Jude's gaze still lingering on Leo's face, Kalen cleared his throat. He told his new apprentice that appearance was fleeting. While Leo might be young, Kalen questioned if he possessed his own level of mastery. Kalen reminded him of his reputation and promised that once he achieved ascension, the entire mountain citadel would be Jude's. Jude's gaze fell to the finely crafted broadsword at Kalen's hip. He looked up, his expression hungry, and asked when his master planned to ascend. Kalen was silent for a long moment, then stated that ascension wasn't necessary. The sword could be his now. A flicker of gratitude crossed Jude's face as he accepted the weapon, but his handsome, sullen features remained devoid of a smile. It was unsettling. Kalen commanded him to perform 300 practice forms with the heavy blade. Jude was obedient, starting the repetitive motions under the harsh sun. But years of malnutrition had left him wiry and frail. Before he reached 100 repetitions, his arms were trembling with exhaustion. On the 100th swing, the sword's momentum pulled him off balance, sending him sprawling to the ground. A pang of concern shot through Kalen, and he nearly rushed forward to catch him. He stopped himself. Indulgence was a trap. He remembered the order's grandmaster, who had caught his apprentice when he fell from a tree. The very next morning, the grandmaster had been seen scurrying from the apprentice's chambers, looking deeply discomfited. Kalen had to be severe with Jude to prevent any possibility of a forbidden bond. He crossed his arms and nudged Jude with the toe of his boot, his voice dripping with scorn. He taunted him, asking if this was the limit of his strength and suggesting he go back to his hometown to dig potatoes. Jude gasped for breath, glaring up at him with pure hatred. Kalen would later learn that Jude's village was desperately poor, surviving on potato farming, but they never had enough to eat the crop themselves. Jude said nothing. He just gritted his teeth, pushed himself up, and continued his forms on unsteady legs. Kalen stood under the same sun, watching him for 3 hours. When the final repetition was done, Jude collapsed to his knees, a pitiable, wretched sight. Kalen fought the urge to help him up and praise his tenacity. Instead, he tossed him a vial of priceless restorative essence, his voice cold as he declared the performance barely adequate and announced 400 repetitions for the next day. Leo suddenly appeared, fussing over Jude, wiping sweat from his brow and murmuring about how stubborn he was, suggesting a little flattery would have eased his master's demands. Jude leaned weakly against him but kept his defiant glare fixed on Kalen. With all his remaining strength, he threw the vial back, stating stonily that he didn't need the master's charity. A surge of fury went through Kalen. He seized Jude not to destroy him, but to land 2 sharp smacks on his rear with the flat of his scabbard. Leo tried to intervene. Kalen shot him a look that promised he'd be next, and Leo fell silent. Kalen forced the stopper from the vial and poured the liquid into Jude's mouth. The essence took effect instantly. Jude's eyes widened in shock, the intended protest dying on his lips. Kalen felt a grim satisfaction, informing him that for his insolence, another 100 repetitions would be added to his daily regimen. Jude surely despised him now, dreaming of the day he would graduate and kill him. Excellent. Another day, another crisis averted. Under Kalen's brutal tutelage, Jude's defiance only grew. If Kalen demanded 500 forms, he'd secretly complete 600. Kalen, his curiosity piqued, began to watch him from the shadows. He discovered Jude had carved a training dummy into a likeness of Kalen's aged form. A rather distinguished-looking old man, Kalen thought with a flicker of vanity. Then he watched Jude cleanly decapitate the wooden figure with a single vicious stroke. The raw aggression in the act was less respectful mentorship and more patricidal rage. Kalen was immensely relieved. This way, if they ever came to blows, Jude would aim for his throat, not his dignity. He thought their antagonistic dynamic could continue indefinitely. But one day Jude stumbled upon the secret affair between the Grandmaster and his apprentice, Evan. The Grandmaster had always been vain. His glamour was meticulously crafted to appear wise, but he had secretly omitted 5 wrinkles from the required pattern. Kalen had privately cursed him for his vanity. Him that such preening would attract the wrong kind of attention from his apprentice. The curse had come true. Jude, returning from his practice, passed the Grandmaster's private chambers and saw the man looking disheveled. His face flushed, with Evan's arm draped possessively around his waist. It was too late for Kaylin to shield Jude's eyes, too late to invent an excuse about Evan simply helping a frail old man. Because just then, Evan leaned in and planted a loud, lingering kiss on the Grandmaster's unnaturally smooth cheek. Jude froze, his mind reeling as his face cycled through shades of green, black, and ghostly white. Evan, looking thoroughly satisfied, spoke in a husky voice, asking his master with deep insinuation if he had been too forceful that day. Even Jude, in his innocence, knew Evan wasn't talking about sword practice. His knuckles were white on his sword hilt. Evan met Jude's horrified stare with unnerving calm, questioning what was wrong and claiming it was a perfectly normal master-apprentice relationship. He then asked if Jude's own relationship with his master wasn't the same. Kaylin, hidden nearby, mentally screamed that it was not normal. Evan pressed on, admitting with a shrug that he and his master were in love. The Grandmaster, mortified, hid his face. Jude was left speechless, mumbling that Evan must have been desperate. Evan simply smirked, cautioning Jude not to be so certain. He had heard that Master Kaylin was once the most beautiful man in the entire order. He suggested that seeing a portrait of Kaylin's younger self might make Jude understand. Jude's resolve wavered. He insisted he would never fall for an old man, but then he asked where he could find a portrait of his master's younger self. A knot of dread formed in Kaylin's stomach. He remembered his younger days, his arrogance and pride in his own looks. After every heroic deed, he had commissioned local artists to capture his likeness. As a result, paintings of him were more common than dandelions in the Order's archives. Every apprentice had one, not for admiration, but as a good luck charm for exams. After he took on the glamour, they'd started clamoring for portraits of his aged form instead, believing it brought greater wisdom. Kaylin checked every apprentice's collection to ensure only the old man portraits were in circulation before returning to his own quarters, feeling relieved. There, he found Jude surrounded by scattered canvases, about to unroll one more. He had forgotten his own private collection. Panic seized him. He snatched the painting from Jude's hands, his voice cracking as he demanded to know what the boy had seen. Jude looked at him with a complicated expression and nodded. Kaylin's heart sank. He scrutinized Jude's face for any sign of burgeoning affection, but the boy seemed impassive. Kaylin then worried he was simply hiding his feelings. He cursed himself for spreading rumors about the Grandmaster's cosmetic enhancements, an act that had clearly led Evan to seek revenge by pointing Jude toward the portraits. Trembling, Kaylin bent to pick up the fallen canvases. He unrolled the first one and stared. It depicted a white blob beating a red splotch with a long stick. After a moment, he recalled it was supposed to be the saint vanquishing the Crimson Fiend. When he told Jude the title, Jude asked where the saint was in the painting. Kaylin guessed that the saint was busy vanquishing the fiend and therefore not pictured. Jude then cautiously wondered if perhaps the white blob was supposed to be him. Kaylin forced a laugh, dismissing the idea as utterly ridiculous. Jude's expression was unreadable as he conceded the point. The next painting was technically brilliant. A vast, churning sea under a stormy sky, with a terrifying black leviathan cresting the waves. It captured the raw power of the ocean and the menace of the beast perfectly. The only problem was that Kaylin was nowhere to be found. He and Jude searched for half an hour before they found a tiny black dot near the leviathan's head. Kaylin's glamour nearly flickered with his rage. Jude, however, couldn't contain his laughter, remarking on his master's impressive presence in the artwork. The rest of the portraits were similarly abstract or had omitted him entirely. His mood soured. It should have been a relief, but he felt strangely insulted. He tossed the last, unopened scroll at Jude, ordering him to put them all away. Jude unrolled it with a smile, but the smile faltered for a fraction of a second, his fingers tightening on the canvas. Then he looked up, his cheerful expression restored, and commented on how this painting, too, captured the master's divine essence. Kalen didn't believe him for a second. As he stormed out, he ran into Leo, who had come to bring Jude some supplies. The sight of Leo's face, a younger, imperfect copy of his own, only fueled his irritation. For the first time, he understood the Grandmaster's vanity. He too had once been admired, a celebrated bladesinger. Was he doomed to live out his days as a crone? Leo asked innocently if Jude had found the portraits he was looking for. Kalen's eyes narrowed. He realized Leo must have told Jude where to find them. He demanded to know what else he had said. Leo stammered that he'd only mentioned, in jest, that his own form was modeled after Kalen's, though his power was too weak to capture even half of Kalen's true beauty. Jude hadn't believed him, scoffing at the idea that Kalen could have ever been so handsome. Listening to Leo's false modesty, Kalen wanted to offer a dry compliment but instead found himself saying it was like a dog trying to paint a tiger. He immediately bit his tongue and tried to backtrack, explaining that Leo was the only youthful elder in the order, a true diamond in the rough. His mouth, however, seemed to have a mind of its own. He fled in a flurry of mismatched idioms, hearing a clear, bright laugh from inside his own chambers as he escaped. He made a decision. The moment Jude passed his final trial next month, he was graduating him. Kalen would never take another apprentice. He was done being an old man. He would shed his glamour and stun everyone with his return to glory. He waited for the trial with agonizing impatience. Fearing Jude might fail and condemn him to another decade of old age, he showered him with protective charms and rare tinctures. Jude, raised on Kalen's relentless discipline, was already the most formidable of his generation. The trial should have been simple for him. Seeing his master so uncharacteristically solicitous, Jude was taken aback, a slight smile playing on his lips as he asked why Kalen seemed so nervous. Kalen, worried Jude's rebellious streak might choose this moment to surface, grabbed his hand and made a solemn promise. He told his apprentice that if he passed, he would show him something wonderful. He meant, of course, the deed to the entire mountain citadel. Once Jude graduated, Kalen planned to drop the glamour, leave everything to him, and vanish to live his own life again. Jude looked down at their joined hands, his gaze lingering for a long time. Then he looked up, his smile brilliant, and promised to give it his all. He was true to his word. In the first stage, a series of duels, he defeated 300 opponents without a single loss. Leo watched, green with envy. Even the Grandmaster praised Jude's prodigious talent, remarking that it reminded him of Kalen's own debut. Evan, standing nearby, made a snide comment about how Jude, unlike himself, would never be one to share his master's bed. The Grandmaster turned purple and fled, muttering curses. The final and most dangerous stage was the trial realm, a pocket dimension where apprentices had to retrieve a specific magical artifact. The elders could only watch through a scrying pool, forbidden to interfere. Jude drew the hardest task, obtaining a 9-petal spirit bloom guarded by a mythical beast. While others worried, Kalen, confident in Jude's abilities, feigned nonchalance and sipped his tea. Leo chastised him for his apparent indifference, questioning his lack of concern. Kalen scoffed, stating that a weak swordsman was unworthy of his tutelage. He projected an aura of cold detachment, but no one saw the tremor in his hand that nearly sloshed tea over the rim of his cup. In the instant he lowered his head to drink, the situation in the scrying pool shifted violently. The beast Jude was fighting, which had seemed on the verge of defeat, suddenly revealed not 3, but 9 thrashing ethereal tails. Kalen spat out his tea. The room erupted in panicked shouts. A 9-tailed alpha. It was impossible. Leo turned to him, but Kalen was already moving, his sword drawn. He shattered the scrying pool's containment field with a single strike. The Grandmaster yelled for him to wait, that entering the realm forcefully would suppress his power. But it was too late. Kalen tumbled through the rift, a crushing weight descending upon him, cutting his power by 2/3. He materialized just in time to throw himself in front of Jude, absorbing a devastating blow from the alpha. Blood sprayed from his lips, the jade pin holding his hair shattered, and the glamour along with it. His silver hair cascaded down, transforming in an instant to a waterfall of jet black. As he turned, he saw Jude's eyes widen in stunned recognition. Kalen grabbed the injured boy and fled, the alpha's fiery breath scorching the forest behind them. He half expected Jude to resist, but the boy was limp in his grasp, his gaze fixed unblinking on Kalen's face. They found refuge in a hidden cave. Kalen looked at his reflection in a clear pool of water. A face pale as winter frost stared back, the stark whiteness making the smear of blood at the corner of his mouth look like a fresh wound. He turned to Jude, who was still staring, his eyes burning with an intensity that seemed to pierce right through him. He hadn't even noticed his own grievous injuries. Kalen frowned, wondering if the boy's mind had been addled by the attack. He tossed him a vial of essence and told him to mate. Suddenly, a warmth touched his lips. His eyes flew open. Jude was kneeling before him, his long fingers gently wiping the blood from Kalen's mouth. He looked up, his gaze soft, and asked if the angel was all right. Kalen was no longer worried Jude was addled. He suspected he was possessed. This couldn't be the same insolent apprentice who used his effigy for target practice. He cautiously asked why Jude was calling him that. Jude smiled faintly. He recounted a memory from 10 years prior, when a stranger had saved his village from a rogue spirit. He said he had called the man an angel then, but the stranger had told him to call him brother instead. Kalen realized with a jolt that this was the village of the terrible portraits. He coughed, trying to recall the beast, but Jude corrected him, saying it was a different one. It didn't matter. If he could maintain his cover, all was not lost. Jude moved closer, intending to use his own energy to heal Kalen. Kalen, repulsed by the intimacy, was about to push him away when Jude sighed. He said that for a moment, when the stranger appeared, he'd thought his master had come to save him. Kalen's hand froze. Jude gave a sad smile, dismissing the idea as impossible. He murmured that his master disliked him and was probably hoping he'd perish in the trial. The words were a knife in Kalen's gut. He blurted out that it wasn't true, that Jude was his master's most prized student. He quickly amended that his master was surely on his way. Jude didn't look convinced. Kalen was forced to reconsider. Had he been too harsh? He had only made Jude master in 10 years what took others 30, tempered his body with elemental energies, staged mock assassinations to hone his senses, and pitted him against wild beasts to build his courage. How could Jude think he wished him dead? But the guilt was undeniable. He allowed Jude to hold him, to channel unfamiliar energy into his meridians. Looking at the boy's pale, determined profile, a new idea formed. The whole point of being harsh was to prevent Jude from falling for him. But Jude didn't know who he was now. A little kindness couldn't hurt. Just then, Jude's energy faltered. He clutched his chest, a pained grunt escaping his lips. Kalen took his wrist, his voice gentle as he offered to heal him instead. Jude demurred, but Kalen insisted, brushing sweat-dampened hair from his forehead. Finally, Jude relented, a faint blush on his ears as he shyly agreed. He then unfastened his tunic, revealing 3 deep claw marks raking across his chest and down to his lean waist. Kalen realized his mistake, but it was too late. Jude took Kalen's hand and pressed it firmly against his own hot skin. His heart hammered against Kalen's palm. Unsure who was more flustered, Kalen averted his gaze and began the healing, his mind a complete blank. Jude's intense gaze never left his face. He leaned closer, his voice a soft murmur as he said that the angel was kind, unlike his master, who would never show such care. Kalen's mind was in turmoil. He closed his eyes, trying to block it all out. But Jude pressed his advantage, whispering that he had been searching for him for a very long time, and now that he had found him, he wanted to bind their fates together forever. The non sequitur was so jarring Kalen's eyes snapped open. Before Jude could say anything more outrageous, Kalen clamped a hand over his mouth, informing him that the trial was over and his mentors were coming. He said their goodbyes. Jude's eyes widened, his expression instantly darkening. Kalen sprang to his feet, but Jude was too fast, catching a lock of his hair. Kalen summoned his sword, severed the strand, and fled as if hellhounds were at his heels. He reapplied his glamour mid-flight, seamlessly blending back into the crowd of elders just as they arrived. A disheveled Jude emerged from the cave just in time to see the uniform ranks of old men. He scanned the crowd, his face falling. Leo was the first to ask if he was all right. Jude ignored him, his eyes fixed on Kalen. He asked if his master had arrived with the other elders. The Grandmaster spoke up, explaining how worried Kalen had been, rushing to his aid the moment he saw the Alpha. Kalen cut him off, claiming he had arrived too late, but that his apprentice was fortunately resilient enough to survive on his own. The other elders glared at his callousness. Jude, however, was persistent. He wanted to know why it had taken so long for them to arrive. Kalen shot a desperate look at the Grandmaster, who cleared his throat and mumbled something about the frailties of old age causing delays. Kalen wanted to protest. He would never let a call of nature get in the way of rescuing his apprentice. But in his aged form, the excuse was plausible if humiliating. Jude then pointed out that his master seemed to be missing 2 wrinkles from his face. Kalen froze. He had been too rushed. The ever-helpful Grandmaster explained that Kalen was simply so relieved to see him safe that his skin had smoothed out with joy. Kalen gave up. He was injured, exhausted, and now he had to face another decade as an old man. His life was meaningless. Behind him, Jude began to recount his rescue by a beautiful, angelic stranger. Every head turned to look at Kalen. Jude then addressed him directly, his expression grave, and announced his intention to find this person and make him his partner for life. The Grandmaster gasped. Kalen felt the world tilt. He declared that he forbade it. Jude demanded to know why. He argued that the stranger had saved him twice, at great risk to himself, and that it must be a sign of affection. Kalen countered that perhaps the stranger had acted out of obligation, not love. Jude was resolved to find out for himself. Kalen was trapped. Telling the truth would violate the order's rules. Lying seemed to have no immediate downside. He sighed, affecting a benevolent tone, and told Jude he wouldn't stand in his way. He was confident Jude would never guess that the celestial being of his obsession was, in fact, his grumpy old master. Jude's search was relentless. He questioned everyone in the order, but the rules held firm. So he turned his attention to Kalen, pestering him daily about whether he'd seen anyone unusual during his delay. Jude grew gaunt, distracted. He even stopped his ritual of decapitating the wooden dummy. Instead, he procured a block of pure white jade and began carving a statue of Kalen's true form. He kept the aged wooden dummy in the training yard and the new, beautiful jade statue by his bedside. Kalen felt immense pressure every time he saw them. The breaking point came when Jude, delirious from exhaustion during practice, nearly succumbed to a dark frenzy. In his confusion, he embraced the wooden statue of the old man and kissed it. The sight horrified Kalen. He slapped Jude back to his senses, shouting at him to recognize what he was doing. Jude, blinking, looked down at the statue in his arms and gave a bitter smile. He told his master he must have lost his mind, mistaking the carving for the other one. Kalen, terrified Jude's next words would be a comment on his own venerable charm, had a flash of desperate inspiration. He told Jude to stop searching. He claimed he had found the person he was looking for. He pointed to a passing Leo. He sent a frantic mental message to his junior, reminding him how much he'd wanted Jude as a disciple and suggesting a life partner was practically the same thing. He sweetened the deal with a promise to glamour Leo's face into a perfect copy of his own. Leo, bewildered but intrigued, played along. Kalen worked his magic, and soon Leo stood before them, wearing Kalen's face. It was unsettling to see. He told Jude that this was Leo's true form, hidden away to avoid unwanted attention. Jude stared at Leo's face for a long, unnerving time. Finally, he observed that a mole was missing. Kalen, shocked that Jude remembered such a detail, quickly explained it had been an unlucky mole and was removed. Jude then noted the nose wasn't quite right. Kalen claimed it had been flattened in a training accident. When Jude started to mention the hair, Kalen snapped, inventing a story about Leo being bald and wearing wigs. He discreetly used his power to shear off Leo's real hair under the wig to prove his point. After that, Jude had no more questions. He turned to Leo with a soft, gentle smile. He took his hand, his gaze full of adoration, and whispered that he had finally found his angel. A strange pang went through Kalen's chest. Jude seemed to genuinely believe it. He abandoned his carving and devoted himself to Leo, who now wore Kalen's face like a trophy. Leo, whose low power level had never qualified him for an apprentice, now had the Order's finest at his beck and call. He exploited it mercilessly, sending Jude on impossible quests for rare herbs and stolen artifacts to bolster his own power. Jude always returned, battered and bleeding, seemingly content as long as it earned him Leo's favor. The sight infuriated Kalen. He confronted Leo, who merely asked if Kalen hadn't been the one to set up the charade in the first place. Kalen argued that he never intended for Leo to abuse him. Leo laughed, retorting that Kalen's own methods had been just as cruel. Kalen was speechless. His training had been harsh, yes, but it was to forge strength. Leo's demands were purely selfish. But whenever he argued, Leo's response was always the same. Jude was doing it willingly. When Leo ordered Jude to venture into the demon-infested Shadowlands, Kalen finally intervened, blocking his path. He immediately noticed Jude was carrying a crude, unfamiliar sword. His own masterfully forged broadsword was gone. Jude explained coolly that it had broken. Kalen was incredulous. He had spent a decade crafting that blade. He demanded to know what had happened to Jude himself, reaching out to check his spiritual energy. Jude sidestepped him, his voice devoid of emotion as he told his master not to trouble himself. Kalen asked if he was mad, blindly following Leo's every whim. Jude finally met his gaze, his eyes like chips of ice. He stated that Leo was his chosen partner, and he would do anything for him. He asked Kalen not to stand in his way. Kalen stood, devastated. Jude paused, asking if there was anything else. Kalen held out his hand and demanded the return of his sword. When Jude replied that it was shattered, Kalen stared into his eyes and repeated his demand. He then added one more question, asking if Jude would return it if Leo had been the one to ask. Kalen took the shattered fragments of the blade back to his forge. Holding the broken pieces felt like holding a piece of his own fractured self. It took him 2 weeks to painstakingly repair it. He wanted to return it to Jude, but remembered he was likely deep in the Shadowlands. He despaired at the boy's foolishness, unable to distinguish truth from a cheap imitation. He wondered if such a gullible apprentice could ever be trusted to lead. But it no longer mattered. He had already decided to step down and leave. Teaching was a miserable, thankless task that had cost him a decade of his life and doomed him to an eternity of old age. So be it. At least he had his skills. He shook his head, placing the repaired sword on his desk next to a letter of abdication. He would leave at dawn. As he drifted off to sleep, the sharp hum of a drawn sword woke him. He opened his eyes to see the gleaming edge of his own repaired broadsword resting against his throat. A hand pressed down on the pillow next to his head, and Jude's voice, a low whisper in the dark, called him Maestro. He asked where he was planning to go. Kalen's heart, even in his aged form, hammered against his ribs. He told Jude to back down, that he wasn't going anywhere. Jude just smiled, a terrifying sight in the gloom, and called him a liar. The blade moved away, but before Kalen could react, Jude was over him, pinning him to the bed. He leaned in close, his voice a silken threat, asking if his master truly believed he couldn't recognize an imposter. Kalen gritted his teeth, hissing that his apprentice was a traitorous snake who had been playing him all along. He reached for a weapon, but Jude's knee pinned his arm. Jude then asked if he wanted to know how he had found him out. Kalen closed his eyes. It wasn't the rescue. It had to be earlier. The painting. Jude confirmed it with a soft chuckle. He unrolled the last, unseen scroll from that day. On the canvas was a figure in white, sword in hand, a faint smile on his lips. His face was flawless, save for a single accidental drop of ink at the corner of one eye, like a teardrop mole. Jude observed that there was no longer any point in maintaining the glamour. Kalen sighed in defeat and let the illusion fall. He felt a profound sense of release. Jude stared at his face for a few seconds. Then, as if finally coming to his senses, he moved off him. He picked up the letter from the desk and tore it to shreds. He stated that if his master wished to travel, he would have to take his apprentice with him, as his training was not yet complete. Kalen scoffed, about to mock his skill level, but Jude simply reached into a spatial pouch and pulled out 9 pristine, white, ethereal tails. Kalen was stunned, asking if he had killed the alpha. Jude confirmed it, asking how else his master thought the sword had been broken. Kalen was speechless. His apprentice was now terrifyingly powerful. Jude moved close again, his presence overwhelming. He asked if he was now qualified to accompany him. Kalen was silent for a long time. Then he pleaded with him to just call him Master. He could already feel a monumental, rule-breaking decision forming in his mind. He was eager to leave, but Jude dawdled, insisting on packing. As dawn approached, Kalen saw him carefully place the hideous saint vanquishing the crimson fiend, painting into his pouch, and exploded, demanding to know why he was taking such garbage. Jude replied that it was a memento of their first meeting. He then packed the wooden dummy. Kalen protested again. Jude explained it was a habit. He wouldn't feel right practicing without it. Just as they were finally ready to depart, a thunderous crack echoed across the mountain. A voice boomed, accusing Master Kalen of debauchery and defiling the sanctity of the order. Kalen's face paled. He grabbed Jude, urging him to run, but it was too late. An irresistible force seized them, pulling them into the air along with every other member of the order, including a hastily dressing Grandmaster and his apprentice. Leo knelt before the great Founder's stone, swearing a heavenly oath. The Grandmaster, looking at Kalen with a sympathetic eye, tried to defend him, but Leo was resolute, invoking a vow against lightning strikes and eternal damnation. A heavy oath for any practitioner. Evan, ever the pot-stirrer, asked who the other party in this alleged affair was. Jude proudly puffed out his chest. Kalen slapped him down. Leo shouted that Kalen and his apprentice Jude were the guilty ones, having broken all 3 sacred tenets. The Grandmaster weakly suggested there might be mitigating circumstances. Leo just laughed and told them to watch the scrying stone. The blank stone face lit up, playing a montage of Jude's time as an apprentice. But it was expertly twisting every moment of Kalen's harsh discipline into a scene of clandestine affection. A collective gasp went through the crowd. Kalen felt the strength leave his legs. All his efforts, all his sacrifices to avoid this very outcome, undone by a rebellious apprentice. He slumped against Jude, his voice a weak whisper. He wanted to leave anywhere, right now, immediately. Jude glanced at the mortifying images of his elderly form in a star-crossed romance, suppressed a laugh, and asked if his master still wanted to keep the old man glamour. Now his true face and his geriatric disguise were infamous across the land. His reputation was in tatters. Jude leaned in, whispering that he had an idea. Kalen demanded to hear it. Jude suggested a disguise as a woman. Kalen stared at him. Then he replied that he had a better idea. When Jude asked what it was, Kalen said with feeling that he was expelling him from the order.